cuma 2 hari ini kegiatannya bayangkan salah. Anjir, sekolah itu buang maju. Kalau ada kelas biasa ada kelas kayak hari ada kelas dan juga berempat. Ada sekolah kalau tapi itu udah lama kan masuk gang. Dia tuh British Park.
Cek, 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 cek.
Ih, bawah. Lihat teman-teman. Lihat mejanya. Kalau mejanya kayak gini kita ini gimana? Oh, kemarin itu baru daripada mau kayak gitu atau senang saudara gedung kelas internasional mereka. Jadi semua lima kan kosong. Semua alimen itu ada semua alimen laki-laki doang, alimen perempuan doang. Jadi itu perempuan tidak. Satu konferensi itu literally aku doang cewek cowoknya, aku doang cowoknya karena voucher kan pas kan anunya apa pionir mentornya pionir. Oh gitu. Aku punya cara mikir. Oh cuman ya mau jalan gitu kan. Kayak dari ya kayak nggak mau nggak mau. Mau caranya gimana. Nanya dong. Well, what. Hah? Oh, tadi ingat-ingat. Yang mana aku tahu. Yang mana aku tahu.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, students, ladies and gentlemen. All praises to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, for His mercy and blessings that allows us to get together here today. May peace and salutation be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Distinguished guest, the Honorable Head of the Department of International Relations, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, Dr. Ade Maruf Wirasenjaya, and the honorable speakers. We warmly welcome you to the one-day conference organized by the Department of International Relations, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. And today's event is attended by 200 participants consisting undergraduate, masters, academics, and researchers. To begin today's agenda, let us recite Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before we proceed to the main agenda, we will beginning by singing the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. May I kindly invite all participation to stand. Before we proceed to the main agenda, we will beginning by singing the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. May I kindly invite all participation to stand. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, to officially open today's conference, we would like to invite the Honorable Head of the Department of International Relations, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, Dr. Ade Maruf Sanjaya, to deliver the welcoming remarks. To Dr. Ade Maruf, the time is yours.
Thank you, Safira. Distinguished guests, honorable speaker, dear professor and friends, and also my beloved students. Very good morning to all of you. It's my great honor and privilege to welcome you to this academic conference hosted here at our institution, International Relations Department, Universitas Muhammadiyah, Yogyakarta. On behalf of Department of International Relations, UMI, I welcome you and extend my highest appreciation. Welcome also to Dr. Melvin. We are quite familiar with Dr. Melvin because Dr. Melvin has been involved in several programs for several years. Since what time, Pak Melvin? 2023. Thank you, Pak Melvin. Today we gather here to discuss and explore an interesting conference. I am really confident that your ideas and insight will foster new perspective and lead to fruitful and impactful collaborate that extend beyond this agenda. My special thanks go to our colleagues, Dr. Ari Kusumapaksi, who have worked so hard to make this forum and this event possible. Please give applause to Pak Ari Kusumapaksi. And once again, thank you for your coming. Enjoy this conference. Enjoy the vibrant of Yogyakarta city. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adewa Wirasanjaya, for the warm and inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we would also like to acknowledge our co-convener of one-day conference from Kobe City University of Foreign Studies, Dr. Kibasaya. We wish to inform you that Dr. Kibasaya is unable to join us today due to another urgent commitment, but she is sending a special message through a video.
Good morning, distinguished guests. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this conference. Unfortunately, due to important commitments in Japan, I'm not able to join you in person today. I'd like to express my deep gratitude to the Japan Foundation for its generous support and its continued commitment to promoting international academic exchange. I'm also sincerely thankful to Dr. Ade Marup Wirasenjaya, head of the Department of International Relations at Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, for his strong leadership and invaluable cooperation in organizing this important event. I would also like to extend my special thanks to Dr. Rafioga Pratana Sadanar, a lecturer and head of laboratory in the Department of International Relations at UMY. Having earned his PhD at Kobe University, Japan, he is now an active and respected scholar in this field. It gives me great personal pleasure to see his contribution to fostering regional and international dialogue through this conference. My sincere appreciation also goes to all scholars, policy experts, and participants from Southeast Asia and Japan who have gathered here today. The Bimp Eaga is one of Southeast Asia's most dynamic sub-regional cooperation frameworks. Through its emphasis on cross-border economic development, infrastructure, and connectivity, it has played a vital role in promoting inclusive growth and regional integration. Japan has long been a consistent partner in ASEAN's regional initiatives and has further strengthened its engagement with Bimp Eaga in recent years. This cooperation includes support for quality infrastructure, maritime and port development, environmental sustainability, and capacity building in human resources. Japan has also placed increasing emphasis on people-to-people exchange, recognizing its importance for building trust and long-term cooperation. On more personal note, I studied in Southeast Asia and received my own professional training in the Philippines as a political scientist. Because of this background, I have a deep appreciation for the region's diversity and inclusiveness. I sincerely believe in the future of Southeast Asian studies, and I have strong confidence in the next generation of researchers from this region. Their work will be essential in shaping informed policies and strengthening cooperation between Southeast Asia and its partners, including Japan. This conference by focusing on infrastructure and connectivity, environmental sustainability, and people-to-people relations, provide an excellent platform to advance such scholarship and dialogue. I hope today's discussions will be both productive and forward-looking. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a fruitful and successful conference.
Thank you, Dr. Kibasaya. Before we proceed to our speakers, please come forward for a group photo. Yes, the speakers, please come forward. Thank you so much. We shall now proceed to the keynote session. It is our honor to invite Dr. Yusuke Takagi from the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies to represent his speech titled Bimp Eaga in the Evolving Regions, a comparative study on sub-regional cooperation in the Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific regions. To Dr. Yusuke Takagi, the time is yours.
Should I use this microphone or? Oh, but I have to manage this one. Yeah, Zoom is working, so. So I just, can I stay here? Because I have to, lift this.
Because the camera look.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right. Should I start? Hey, distinguished guests and super accommodative organizers and students and fellow colleagues from the region. It's a great honor for me to be here. I'm Yusuke Takagi from National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. Maybe let me sit down from now. Thank you very much for the invitation. And let's start with some background of this idea of Bimp Eaga. And I submit an abstract talking about the comparative study of Bimp Eaga in the broader regions in the age of Asia Pacific or in the age of Indo-Pacific. I'm talking about the age in 1990s and then the period after around 2010s when I say like the age of Indo-Pacific. I gave you the abstract talking about comparative study of the Asia of Asia Pacific and Indo-Pacific region. But I think, yeah, that the more I prepare, the more I realize, oh, maybe this shouldn't be a main focus of this my talk. So I will change a bit. But for the sake of my submission or the commitment, I want to briefly touch upon the issue. Like when Bimp was launched in 1994, we are in the age of the post-Cold War, retrospectively, I might say like euphoria. We had a very optimistic views of so-called peace dividend after the Cold War. We didn't need to pay attention to security issues. We can commit on economic globalization. That was an idea we shared in the 1990s. And so Bimp was launched in 1994, and soon after, the Philippines hosted a summit of the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, in 1994 or 1995, under the same leadership of the President Ramos. So when we talk about the origin of Bimp we remember this kind of the very optimistic view of globalization. But now we are in a different age, unfortunately. We are in the age of geoeconomics or geopolitics. And everybody have to talk about economic security when you even talk about economic cooperation. So we are in a different age. And that's a very important background to think about sub-regional cooperation like Bimp. Having said, but actually, my conclusion is that maybe despite changing regional context, Bimp will stay in course. That's my conclusion actually today. And why is it so, or which I will explain with this talk. So this is a roadmap today. I will go to the chronology of Bimp development, which has already 30 years long history. So I want to go back to the chronology a bit and then go to the theory. And the theory I highlight is the market failure and I mean, political will is of course not a theory. Market failure is a kind of a theoretical implication which I want to use to guide my talk. And another kind of the theoretical framework, or maybe I should say conceptual framework, is how to understand regionalization or regionalism, or simply the question is how to integrate a region. And to understand that in Asian studies context, everybody talk about de facto regional integration rather than de jure economic integration. That's another key which I want to remind you. And some case study I want to touch upon the trilateral cooperation agreement among Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Of course, this is not Bimp, but of course the focus of the activities in the scope of Bimp definitely. So I will touch upon this arrangement, and I will explain why I want to talk with you about this topic later on. And then the last is the public goods of each nation and those in the region, which has something to do with the theoretical background of my talk, like market to failure. How to go beyond the market to failure is the challenge we have to think harder. And the conclusion is a kind of lessons learned. So let me go to the chronology here. I got this chronology from MINDA, Mindanao Development Authority of the Philippines. And in a sense, this is a kind of official summary of the history of Bimp from the Philippine side, at least. MINDA is a national secretariat of Bimp from the Philippine side. And of course, I revise it a bit. I mean, red circle is of course my responsibility. Nobody wants to highlight downturn. But I like this slide very much because unlike official documents from the government, they pointed out and they recognize the downturn after 1998. That's very important. That's why I like it. But as a member of academic community, I cannot buy this explanation 100%, especially the revitalization after 2001. Yeah, of course, I want to discuss or debate with you about assessment of the Bimp, but in my view, Bimp hasn't regained the momentum yet. When you think about kind of exciting launching moment in 1994, which has something to do with, of course, as I said, the kind of zeitgeist in the 1990s when we talk about, peace dividend after Cold War. So that's one of the reasons why we cannot regain the momentum, because broadly speaking, it's not only Bimp Eaga, but after 2001, we were in the age of so-called war on terror, globally speaking. And then after that, we are in the age of geopolitics. So it's really challenging for us to think about, peace and prosperity in this global context. That's another reason why I cast doubt on the revitalization. But having said, of course, I hastily add that, I mean, failing regaining the momentum doesn't mean the end of the story. And I want to mention some about some development. But before that, I want to highlight a theoretical background of my talk. And from the beginning, of course, if you read policy papers on Bimp Eaga or other regional cooperation arrangement, you will see the full of rosy pictures. And political economists always cast out on these rosy pictures by the government. One of the reasons is the market failure we should understand first. In the case of private market, of course, private goods are exchanged, but the challenge for the players in the market is to provide public goods, because of the specific nature of the public goods, it's really tough for the players in the market to provide the public goods. Theoretically speaking, because of the non-excludable and non-liable nature of public goods, to put in a different way, we want non-exclusiveness means that even though I use particular service, everybody can use the service. So then the question is that who want to pay to make the goods from the beginning instead of paying and using the goods. Instead, maybe you can use the goods at the sacrifice of others' payment. That's a kind of unfortunately human nature. So because of that, market player doesn't want to provide public goods. For instance, it's really difficult to imagine market player to prepare road or say park or even security is a very important public goods, which market player cannot deliver well. So therefore, government should intervene. In other words, here I should think about a political will of the government. So what I want to highlight here is that, if you let market decide, nothing happens in terms of the public goods generation. So we have to think about political will to shoulder the cost to make public goods. In the case of Bimp Eaga, we go back to the history, the political will. I got it again from Minda, and they highlight the role of the President Fidel Ramos of the Philippines in 1994. He went to Davao to launch Bimp Eaga in 1994. And Ramos committed for economic growth in various contexts. And one of the evidences that I want to share is that the administrative order of the President Ramos, which he launched in 1992, I quote, "Now, therefore, I, Fidel Ramos, President of the Philippines, by virtue of the powers vested in me by law, do hereby order and direct the Director General of the National Security Council to revitalize the National Security Council and the Intelligence Committee and to reorient their activities toward attending broader national goals." If you are familiar with the Philippine history, Ramos maximized his network in the military. He was former military guy, and someone concerned about actually militarize the cabinet. But actually what happened under Ramos was that he desecuritized the security sector and then change the focus from pure security to broader comprehensive security issue. Therefore, Ramos launched Philippine 2000 using National Security Council. So the council was designed for the defense purpose, but actually Ramos changed the purpose of National Security Council. So that's the kind of domestic context where Ramos promoted Bimp Eaga. And of course, another context we should remember is that Ramos committed a peace agreement with MNLF, Moro National Liberation Front in the Philippines. So to reconstruct Mindanao, Ramos needed the Bimp Eaga. And the reason why I said that Ramos committed Bimp Eaga was that Ramos did lots of works, lots of homework in their own country to overcome the challenge in domestic front, which what I'm talking about is a Sabah claim. Philippines never give up the claim of Sabah, which is a problem between Philippine-Malaysian relationship. But actually, Ramos prepared a lot to bury the claim. He said they bury the claim for the time moment. And then he visited Malaysia and he invited Mahathir. So that was another, I said that political will. And it shows, I mean, the reconciliation between Manila and KL represent the political will of the Philippine side. But as I said, in 1998, again, I got it from official documents. Four countries focused on in-country initiative to cushion crisis impact. So here they talk about the impact of Asian financial crisis and El Nino, La Nina. If you are familiar, remember with this ecological crisis in 1997, 1998, it was really shocking and a harmful event. But again, if you are familiar with the history after that, we cannot too much overemphasize the impact of Asian financial crisis or this ecological crisis. Rather, I want to highlight the kind of the context where the crisis converted into political crisis in several countries. In the Philippines, because of presidential system, Ramos stepped down and then the new administration came, Joseph Estrada's administration. But because we are in Indonesia and you are much more familiar with, of course, the history of your country. So 1998, you experienced reformacy in Indonesia and collapse of Suharto regime. So drastic change of political leadership in Indonesia. And of course, if you remember Malaysian case, 1998, reformacy was not the one in Indonesia. It happened in Malaysia, but it's a bit smaller scale. And Mahathir stayed in power, but if you remember, Mahathir kicked out his deputy at the time, Anwar. And now Anwar is a prime minister, of course. But anyway, that was the political turmoil in Malaysia too. So because of these political crises, political leaders couldn't maintain the commitment to external affairs. So that was one of the reasons we observed a downturn in Bimp initiative. As I said, without political will or public commitment, it's very difficult to maintain this kind of cooperation. But having said, of course, initiative never died. That's why we are here. So I'm so happy that the survival of this initiative. And yeah, maybe I want to mention two things about establishment of facilitation center, Bimpega Facilitation Center in 2003. That is a very big achievement for Bimpega initiative to have a responsible office at least. Actually, there is also a challenge for facilitation center, but anyway, it's better than nothing, of course. And some development of the initiative is to set up economic corridors, like West Borneo economic corridors and Greater Sulu Sulawesi economic corridors. And according to this new midterm review, which I cite here, the photo of this midterm review blue one. You can download it from Bimpega website. And according to this review, people are thinking about East Borneo Economic Corridor, the third corridor under Bimpega framework. Of course, the background is, the story to develop a new capital in Indonesia, which maybe we can discuss more in the Q&A session. But anyway, so there are some developments here. And also, if you go back to, go back to this one, from 2006 onward, actually, Bimp Eaga periodically published the midterm development plan. First was I want to be clear about the title of the document, so um, let me quote clearly. So first they had the roadmap to development 2006 to 2010, and for the 2012 to 2016 they had implementation blueprint, and now we are in the age of Bimp vision for 2025. But I want to highlight is not only the publication of the roadmap, but also the publication of midterm review. This is a very important self-assessment of the achievement of Bimpeaga. And the reason why I said that I don't buy revitalization fully at the beginning of my talk is supported by the kind of the finding of this midterm review. According to midterm review, there are several, infrastructure development, but so far only 38% of the project was completed. And of course, we should remember in the period when they assess the implementation, we had a COVID-19 pandemic, which stopped almost everything. So yeah, we should be fair with the policymakers there, but still 38%. So I don't think that's why I said that the momentum was fully revitalized. But at the same time, it never died. Then why it never died? That's another thing that I want to share. Regionalism and regionalization. So from the beginning, first of all, we should distinguish regionalization from regional integration with regionalism. Sorry, I say region here. Um, what I mean by regionalism is a political will to make region one. So make it simple, like in Europe, you may say, oh, I'm a European. But in ASEAN, for instance, nobody say I'm ASEAN or ASEANese. There's no such word here. So it's not about political will to make region one. Even Southeast Asian is very much conceptual compared with identity like European identity. But the important thing is that we should not think that there's no regional integration in this area, even though we don't have a strong political will to make region one. That's why we call it, we highlight the fact like so-called de facto economic integration, or it was called regionalization without political will. We observe de facto economic integration thanks to the series of economic activities, including foreign direct investment and trade. And foreign direct investment is different, of course, from foreign indirect investment. Why it's direct investment? Because it comes with the people. So foreign direct investment comes with the people, with factory, with job opportunity, and throughout this kind of accumulated activities, we observe a kind of economic integration in this region here. Today I often use East Asian economic integration. By East Asia, I mean Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia, because this de facto economic integration happened in this broader East Asian context. And Bimpeaga was, of course, within the scope of this uh, regionalization. And key here is that it's not a political will for cooperation, but rather political will for competition to attract more FDI, for instance, in each country. The more you compete in Southeast Asia, the more friendlier the business environments in this region will be. Therefore, we observe economic integration. So it's not cooperation, but competition result in de facto economic integration, which I want to remind at the beginning. And because of that nature, from the beginning, we don't rely too much on cooperation. Without cooperation, we may see deep interactions in this region. So the challenge here is to transform deep interaction to deep cooperation. That's a challenge. And we should not forget about this thin line between cooperation and competition. And having all said, and now I go to a case of new cooperation agreement. As I said, cooperation is challenging, but we have a cooperation agreement, new cooperation agreement in 2016, trilateral cooperation agreement. Uh, what triggered this cooperation? It was attack of Abu Sayyaf group against Indonesian vessel heading towards the Philippines. And this kidnap for ransom case were very much worrisome for Indonesians. So even Minister Luhut Panjaitan said that if we didn't do anything, this area can be new Somalia. That was a concern Luhut Panjaitan publicly said. And after that, three government decided to establish trilateral cooperation agreement. And the reason of that, and then, so yeah, here you can see the result of this result or the situation after, at least, I should say. I'm not so sure whether this is a result of cooperation agreement or some other reasons like the changing target of Abu Sayyaf from kidnap for ransom to the land territory in Malawi or other areas. But anyway, the situation maritime situation after 2016, we can observe kind of improvement. You can see the decreasing number of the kidnap for ransom from 2016. And some researchers point out other issues rather than trilateral cooperation agreement. We may have different reasons to see the decline of kidnap for ransom. But what I want to highlight here is again, we should not forget that the Philippines is very serious about cyber crime. But despite that, they could make this cooperation agreement in the field of security or safety, which is very much sovereignty sensitive issues. So actually, cybercrime shouldn't be the only reason that Philippines didn't take a proactive position to promote Bimp. So then why they could make cooperation agreement? Here, regionalization matter again. And in the Philippines, in the Philippines after 2000, around after 2004, we could observe the continuous economic growth in the Philippines. And economic growth comes with growing demand for energy. And give you the example is electricity. And if you see the energy consumption, you can see the continuous increase. And what of the energy sources the Philippines use the most is actually coal. If I can show you the point here, this is by the way 2000. So after 2000 onward, you see the rapid increase of the coal consumption to generate energy, electricity in the Philippines. And then where does coal come from? Surprisingly, almost 100% are from Indonesia. Almost 1% are coming from Australia, but actually it's very much Indonesia driven. And you remember the trigger of the case of trilateral cooperation agreement, it was attack by Abu Sayyaf against Indonesian vessel bringing the coal to the Philippines. So that's a very important security concern for the Philippines. So it doesn't matter whether they claim Sabah or not. Electricity matters more. And this comes from driving force of regionalization. We should remember it's the economic growth of each nation. And if we see the economic growth of each nation, we can see kind of de facto or regional cooperation more and more. So that's the background of the development of Bimp in my view, because the landmark project of Bimp so far to me are these two. One is a very long bridge in Brunei, linking Brunei over Malaysian territory. Another one is Borneo grid from Malaysia to Indonesia. These are very definitely big project under Bimp. And here I want to highlight, this is one of the projects which Bimp highlights as a successful cooperation efforts, which I don't disagree, of course. This is a very big step to promote cooperation. But again, we should remember Bimp is a four-country cooperation. And then why only two countries are involved? That's one thing. And uh, actually, the midterm review also pointed out we can think about a four-country cooperation and also regional implication of a national project. And even though a project can be national focus, like this grid project in Kalimantan from Indonesian side is a part of the Indonesian development plan. But actually regional implication can be found. So we have to think about, or maybe we should appreciate more about regional implication of national economic growth. It comes to and it can be applied to the case of trilateral cooperation agreement. National economic growth happened in the Philippines, embed the Philippines in the region more. Or actually, Philippines now relies more on the sources from Indonesia, which result in the regional cooperation among three countries. So the conclusion here is that, as I said, Bimp will stay in course even in the age of geopolitical challenge, because actually de facto regionalization has evolved through market competition, and the free market has prompted government to provide public goods for each nation, especially for business. And because of the specific nature of the public goods, their efforts have come with sub-regional implication of national project. I pointed out the challenging dimension of public goods. I mean, how to show that the cost to make public goods is always challenging. But once public goods are provided, actually benefits are huge, and you can go beyond the one who make the public goods. So we can think about the implication, sub-regional implication of national project. And TCS story holds that each nation's economic growth generates overlapping public goods, each nation, public goods of each nation and those of region. And thanks to growing demand for coal from the government of from the Philippines, governments of the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia work closely together. So in other words, we are observing de facto regionalization even in the region where we call it Bimp Eaga. The challenge here is that how to transform de facto regionalization into regional cooperation. Because again, interaction doesn't mean cooperation. Anyway, interactions are there. So because of that, I'm so happy to be here to join the efforts to convert this interaction into a cooperation in the future. With that, I want to conclude my talk and terima kasih and welcome to your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuke, for the profound insights. Now it's time for question and answer session. The Q&A session will be handled by Reza. Reza, please come forward.
Okay, so thank you so much for the presentation. It also come a bit of a surprise that I eventually have to lead the questions and answer. But just to warm up, since this is the first section of the day, shall there be any students that would like to ask questions? You may do so. Ada pertanyaan teman-teman? Barangkali teman-teman ada yang mau nanya pakai bahasa Indonesia juga nggak apa-apa banget. Nanti bisa kakak bantu translasi ke bahasa Inggris. Okay, yes. Can the committee help me transfer the mic to the gentleman over there?
Hello. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for the presentation was really insightful. So my question is that in this BIM case, the Japan is the investor. Like in case of ASEAN, we see the Singapore and Japan, this country is an investor. But in case of BIM, we see the invest. But when it comes to like human investment, we don't see a lot of investment from Japan side. Like they don't invest too much in other countries to create a skilled labor, to spread their language, or to do any kind of human investment. Can you provide some details about it? Like what is Japan doing about the human investment in these countries?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, Japan's commitment to this region, Bimp, is a part of the Japan's commitment to Southeast Asia in general. And there's no kind of discrimination to the people living in this area, other part of the area. And Japan started, for instance, first and foremost, I want to highlight scholarship program. Ministry of Education started the MEC scholarship in the 1950s, right after the ratification of San Francisco Peace Treaty. Japan started a scholarship program offering the scholarship to those who want to study in Japan. And it has more than half-century history. And there are many scholars who study in Japan, actually in this room. I know it's like they will, maybe you will see the recipient of this scholarship program who are working in their own countries, but working for this region too. And another thing that I want to highlight is Japan's commitment to the peace in the Mindanao. That's a very trailblazing effort for Japan, because actually security issues has been a big taboo, quote unquote, I should say, after the Second World War, of course, because of history, Japan invaded this region. So why could Japanese government do anything about security in this region? That has been a kind of the position for like 40, 50 years. But against this background, Japan committed to provide a peace in Mindanao. And Japan stayed in this effort together with, of course, Malaysia and Indonesia. Malaysia and Indonesia committed also to support the peace talks in Mindanao. So that's another thing that I want to highlight. And Japan invested a lot for that. And even for my university, we accepted people from autonomous region of Mindanao as a students, and they will be, I mean, they are working for the government of autonomous region there. So that's another example I can share with you. And maybe I cannot stop talking about this, but I stop here for a while. And if you have a additional question, I'm happy to comment. Thanks.
Is there any follow-up questions? Any follow-ups?
China is doing like long-term investment in African countries, but Japan, it seems like a businessman who says that my product is ready, just buy it. It's not investing in long term as the China is investing, go to a country, have like 40, 50 years plan there, or like do a lot of investment there. Japan just say like ready-made products, just buy it, it's ready today and then.
Yeah, thank you very much. I should say it has something to do with Japan's history in this region. I mean, Japan, in a sense, the people who are working for international corporation, I mean, not my generation, but maybe senior generation, I should say, belonging to the generation where we should say sorry to the region where we invaded. And we are not in the position to say like, oh, Japanese people are doing something good for you, so you should work with us. That's not the way the Japanese people want to do. Therefore, people do not understand or people do not remember what Japanese government is doing. That's a kind of virtue our seniors had, which I respect. But in the competition, like geopolitical competition, probably we should change the strategy. Like we have to be very clear, like what Japan is doing. But anyway, that's kind of the historical legacy, kind of the negative legacy we had in the last century. And this century, we should change attitude. That's my take. But of course, this should happen in the context of interaction with the people who are working together. So that's why I'm so happy to join this type of conference to talk with the people from the region. Yeah, that's my response.
Okay, next up, questions from Mr. Ramli?
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Thank you very much for a very impressive presentation, Mr. Yusuke. My question is because you mentioned just now about TCA. Yeah. My question is, do you think this TCA will work without Indonesia? Because of some claim you mentioned just now, it is very difficult for Malaysia and Indonesia to work. But why suddenly because of Indonesia? Do you think Indonesia facilitated the issue? And my question is, Do you think this cooperation will work without Indonesia? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm Abdul Hai from Brunei. Right, thank you very much for your presentation. So it's quite very insightful by looking into how this BIM has been, developed since 1994. And then you did mention about the evolutions of the BIM. So I have one question, like, I mean, from your point of view, since, like Japan has been incorporating into this BIM, particularly this human capital that has been developed in Indonesia and also in the Philippines. So we can see that there's like a very good relations between Japan and also in the Philippines, also Japan in Indonesia as well. So, but by looking at this context, BIMEG is a very complex sub-regional cooperation. It's not, we're not talking about economics. We're talking about this political security, political economy in that context, right? So what is your point of view? I mean, you did mention about this, BIMEG roadmap. I mean, so after 2016, we have these four sectors, right? And then when you look into that context, of course, it's like China is a very opportunist, right? In that context. So what is your point of view? We are not looking into this comparative context, but by looking into, like this opportunity, right? That has been championed by China, right? If you're looking into these sectors. But China has, has different context, particularly with this connectivity, right? So the connectivity, they come up with this GDI, for instance, right? It was with BRI Belt Initiative in the past, but with this, the current context, they also initiated with GDI, where if you look into the similarity of what Japan has doing, like human capitals, people to peoples. So I just want your point of view on that context. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for wonderful questions. Yeah, first TCA. Yeah, Indonesia matters a lot. And in my view, as I said, Mr. Rufut Panjaitan pay much attention to this issue because the vessel was attacked. I mean, the Indonesian vessel was attacked. And coal exports is, of course, one of the very important industry in this region and the region where Rufut comes from. So Indonesia stays in this TCA, but so that's my first point. The second point is that maybe we should not rely only on TCA, of course. I mean, each nation should work harder to maintain the peace, right? And I think Malaysia played a very important role, but a very in a secret way, because the information sharing is the things that we don't talk in the conference, right? You do not, sometimes you do not share the information, but you allow the law enforcement people to travel with maybe not official passport, but just a tourist, and then you do what you have to do. That kind of things should be strengthened and shouldn't be uh, politicized or shouldn't be, in a sense, publicized in a wrong way. So my point of this TCA is that thanks to this TCA, there was again the term which I use, the momentum of each nation to work something to build up the peace in this area. And because of that, actually, Philippines enhanced efforts to suppress Abu Sayyaf around 2017. And it has nothing to do with actually, there is no direct connection between, say, Bimp Eaga and the Philippine operation against Abu Sayyaf or Maute Group. But these kind of national efforts have regional implication, I said. And the regional and the national interests are at the stake from Indonesian side, for instance, coal exports to the Philippines, and from Philippine side, of course, the safety in southern Philippines, and also the electricity in general. And because of that, they committed to work together. So because of that, I think we could observe the decline of the kidnap for ransom, but I don't know how long, how stable this commitment can be. And of course, the serious question or tough question is that how to address the Sabah claim of the Philippines from Philippine side. And that's one thing that I really want to hear from the participant from the Philippines. But anyway, that's my question to the other participants. So I stop now, and I will ask this question to other. But anyway, yeah, going back to your question about the context of the rising China China thing. And maybe we should not compete with China in squarely. Of course, we cannot compete with China squarely in terms of quantity and then again the momentum of the nation. But we should remember the fact that Japan, for instance, maintained good relationship for your country, Indonesia, Malaysia, thanks to the very long-term commitment of human capital development, including the scholarship project. And I hope you enjoy your stay in Japan while you are studying, and without any political agenda, I hope, because sometimes I feel like Japan should be the center of the Japan should be the center for education in this region where you can talk whatever you like. You can criticize Abe, you can criticize Takaichi, our prime ministers. You can say many bad words about these prime ministers in Japan. If you do that in China against Xi Jinping, I'm not so sure what will happen. And that's the context we should maintain. And that's the area where we should actually compete with China. It's not about the quantity or the number of the bridges we make, but a life where we can enjoy. That's something that Japan should not forget and enhance. That's my response to you.
With the last questions presented by Mr. Abdul Hai Julai and Mr. Ramli, wrap up the current discussion. Next up, we're going to move to the next session, which is the appreciation session. I'm going to invite Professor Melvin and Mr. Ari Paksi to hand over the certificate and also the committee to take the documentation.
It is my honor to present the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Yosuke Takagi for being the keynote speaker of this one-day conference entitled Bimp Eaga and Japan Issues and Prospects this day, 24th day of January 2026, signed by Dr. Adi Weransinjaya, the department head of the Department of International Relations. Thank you very much, Sensei. At this point, before we proceed with the panel sessions, let me give you an overview of what will happen actually today. This is, of course, on behalf of our organizer, Dr. Ari Paksi. So these discussions for the three panels are actually organized into three broad themes. The first one is about infrastructure and political economy, environmental sustainability, and people-to-people relations. Actually, the conference has 10 papers. It's a coincidence that we have 10 members, of course, excluding Timor-Leste, which is yet to have a full membership of the body. So panel sessions explore Japan's contributions to regional security governance, labor mobility, grassroots development, and social welfare, as well as the environmental and social implications of economic partnership agreements. Attention is given to youth perspectives, migrant workers, community-based initiatives, underscoring the importance of inclusive and people-centered approaches to regional cooperation. Overall, the conference aims to generate scholarly insights and policy-relevant recommendations that can strengthen the Bimp Eaga-Japan relations while promoting sustainable, equitable, and locally grounded development. For the first panel session, we have three speakers. The first one will talk about Japan's role in BIMP Ayaga's political economy and security challenges by Dr. Abdul Hai Julai from the University of Brunei Darussalam. Then it will be followed by a discussion on Japan's contribution to human capital development in Sabah, Malaysia, to be presented by Dr. Ramli Dula of the University Malaysia Sabah. And of course, we have Dr. Rafuga Jihan Pratama Ersadanar of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta will talk about Japan's maritime security governance. Then, for the following session, we also have three speakers. The first one will talk about Generation Z's views on economic partnership agreement between the Philippines and Japan and Indonesia and Japan, to be presented by yours truly. Then it will be followed by a discussion on the Japan Philippines Economic Partnership Agreement as a trailblazer in the Japanese care labor market and beyond by Dr. Michio Yuneno Reyes of the University of Shizuoka. And then lastly, we have, of course, Dr. Antonio Spornomo of Universitas Irlanga. And he's going to talk about bridging cultures and building integration to problems of Indonesian migrant workers in Japan. And then following our lunch, we will have our last session, the first of which will talk about Japan's grant assistance to empower grassroots level community by Mr. Yuji Shinozaki of the Japanese Embassy in Indonesia. And then we also have Dr. Dindo Cafe of the University of the Philippines, Manila, who is going to talk about a study on the peace building process through interfaith dialogue in Cotabato City, Maguindanao. And of course, last but not the least, we will have the conference organizers presentation on the role of faith-based organizations in public welfare in Indonesia and Japan. So each panel session will be about 30 minutes. Each speaker, by the way, is given 8 to 10 minutes. Apologies. And then questions will be entertained after all the presentations in the panel. So we hope that our forum today will be engaging and will stimulate further discussions in issues confronting the sub-region. Just in case we will not be able to accommodate your Q&A, please feel free to approach our speakers if you have questions that you cannot, leave the day without asking the questions to the speakers. So we will expect all the attendees to be respectful and support an academic atmosphere of collegiality. So don't be shy. Please ask questions. Terima kasih. Maraming salamat. We will have a 5-minute break and then we will return for our first panel session. Thank you. Moderator will be at the moderator will be here. Moderator di tengah. Gitu ya.
Yeah, you can call me Rafi. So we think we can work to the center. Yeah. So Dr. Ramli, where are you originally from? Originally from Kabay. You give correctly? Yes, Rafi, Rafi. Saya dulu sebelum kuliah di sini, bachelor di sini, dan master, doctor, sini. I did the entire 5 year program.
May I please have your attention, please? Now, we move on to our first academic dialogue, panel session 1. This session will be moderated by Mr. Zulfan. Mr. Zulfan is a researcher at a Center for Development International Studies UMY. To Mr. Zulfan, please take over the session.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for all the committee and the board of the committee that give me a chance for being in these wonderful discussions, being a moderator in these wonderful discussions. So good morning and distinguished speakers, respected guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zulfan Fakrimanda. Will be your moderator for this first panel sessions. In my honor to welcome you in a panel of sessions, one-day conference entitled BIMP EAG at Japan Issue and Prospect, with our distinguished speakers already in front of you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, that these panel sessions will explore about the Japan's role in BIPM EAGA from the multiple perspective, ranging from political economy, security, and human capital development into also with the maritime security governance. And this panel is particularly important as the highlight of how extra-regional partners like Japan's engage with sub-regional cooperations among the developing ASEAN state, while also raising critical questions about the capacity building governance and the regional sustainability. With my honor, I would like to mention first about our distinguished speaker. Beside me, Dr. Abdul Hai Julai from the University of Brunei Darussalam with the topics, the paper regarding to a new strategic partners, Japan role of PIPA, political, economy and security challenges. And second, for our second distinguished speaker, namely Mr. Dr. Ramli Dola from the University of Malaysia Sabah, will present about the Japan's contributions to human capital development in Sabah, Malaysia, a case study of the KPDOISCA Youth Training Center in Tenom. And our last but not least, for the third speakers, from Dr. Rafiga Jahan Pratama Irsadanar from the University of Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, will present about the ideational implications of Japan-Indonesia maritime security, cooperation, trust, capacity building, and shared values. So there is changing topic difference from the guidebook. So without any further ado, I would like to invite for our first speaker, Dr. Abdullah Hayjule from University of Brunei Darussalam. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and selamat pagi and good morning. Right. My topic to be delivered today is the Japan's strategic role in Eaga. So we're looking into how to address the political economy and security challenges, particularly, that being mentioned earlier on by Dr. Yusuke about how the evolutions and also the narrative of this Eaga has been evolved, right, since 1994. So for this topic, can you move to second, right? Okay, for this topic is to look into, some of the introductory part, particularly with this biopolitics of this sub-regional periphery. As you know, the Brunei is the only country that has this autonomous power in Bimiaga. If you look into Indonesia, right, it's the province of Kalimantan and Sulawesi. So Malaysia is covering Sabah and Sarawak, and also the Philippines is covering the Mindanao and also the Palawan province. So historically, that this region has been facing so many challenges with regards to NTST, with non-traditional security threats and also traditional security threats. So this is quite interesting. If you look into the sub-regional corporations, right? I'm not an expert of Bimiaga. I'm just looking into from this political economy point of view. So our key aspect of this one, yes, we have this opportunity. Bimiaga has well versed of these opportunities both in economic and non-economic sectors. But if you look into the context itself, like what happened in the southern Philippines, like Abu Sayyaf, right? There's actually so many incidents, so Marawi. It's not just in the Philippines, but also that we're facing off this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Preferably about this, undercommuted Philippines in Sabah as well, right? So this is like an ongoing situation in the NTS as well. So if you look into that context, this is what we look into this institutional dynamics, particularly with this looking into these political contestations of this, between the social forces. It's not really, if we look into ASEAN in a bigger perspective, we're facing so many issues, particularly in South China Sea, right? Where China is claiming like U-shape, like territory, like covering from north to south. But if you look into this sub-regional context, we also facing so many problems, right? From uh, uh, Sabah, between Sabah and the Philippines, also between, Kalimantan from that other side. Like, so we have well versed of this NTS as well. So the transformation itself looking into, so my focus is only look into this 2024, 5 years, what has been developed for this BMIAGA. So what are the significant shift that elevated from this, from central theater of engagement, particularly with this China well versed in this infrastructural power, right? We cannot deny that. And also Japanese, is more into this, security normalizations. Thank you to Japan. I studied in Japan under Mombusho, right? I studied in Japan Mombusho. I studied in International University of Japan. 使わないだからちょっと日本語を知りました。Yeah. So this is a work in progress. I'm planning to submit a paper on this. Right. I did publish on Bimiaga by using this historical institutionalism, looking into this political context. So this theoretical framework looking into few aspects, the discipline, security, and also institutional agency. So there are two modes of power. I'm using this, focal the positive, by looking into this, how to actually differentiate the discipline, which is through power to enclosing space and also security. So China mode is a very territorialization, right? You see China everywhere, even in Brunei, right? Since 2013, we have this, China is our main partner in economic development. So it cannot be denied. So this is to boost our Brunei Vision 2035, as Dr. Yusuke mentions about the longest bridge that connecting Brunei and our other parts of Brunei. So this is a trilateral agreement between Brunei, Korea, and also China to boost the economic development within this region. So Japan is, by looking at this milieu management, so it's a work in progress, right? A conceptual paper. So I'm still working on this. So this is a Japan 5, right? The free and open Indo-Pacific, which is representing a very well versed in the mechanism of security. Japan does not seek, of course, Japan has a very clear and very transparent when it comes into this legal framework, right? So that was the reason Japan managed the milieu, which means that to ensure the space remain accessible to global capital and resilient against cohesions. So those actually when you look into a comparative context between China and also Japan. All right. Secondly is it, can you go up a bit? All right. So this is historical institutionalism. I'm quoting myself. So so this is the paper that I published. So we recognize that the BIMYAGA are very active agents. They're not active recipients because of the opportunities, right? A very strategic choice of how these domestic stakeholders, particularly within this frictions of framework, where Japan, if you look into that one, is insistence of a high standard. That is actually quite unique with Japan context within this region. Can you move to second? All right. So this is what we look into this positive of infrastructural control. First, we look into how. I mean, this is actually quite important also. I don't want to, to expand more on this China GDI and also but this is the real situation, the real deal that we're facing now. China involvement within this region. Right? The BRI, for instance, that was announced in 2013 under President Xi Jinping. And now they try to come up with a very soft narrative, which is under Global Development Initiative, GDI. So the GDI is like incorporating all these four sectors of BIMYAGA, if you look into that context, right? Connectivity, people to people, SDG, right? But they have their own version of it, which is similar to SDG, right? Through this initiative, China actually maintains a very strong position within this context of hardware, or we call it as a physical landscape, right? So those are actually some example. If you look into Brunei relations with China, that we have this Brunei Hengyu Industries, petrochemical, right? So this is an ongoing project, and it has been invested billions. And second, Malaysia digital infrastructures, right, that has been developed. And if we look into the context of regional pattern as well, we have a very speed and also scale, like China involved in 24 of these Southeast Asia's infrastructures, mega projects, for instance. Next, please. All right. So one of the example that I can see is the, from Brunei context is the Brunei self-contained economy, right? The Pulau Muara Besar is our big project. This is project that being championed by national context, but Brunei is very small. That we need. I mean, once when BRI approached us in 2013, we tried to come up with our project with China. So this is the expansion level declarations. So Hayashi for level 2 declaration, the foreign minister of Yoshimasa Hayashi in October 2020 represent a very strategic figure, right? Explaining how delaying the circuit of Sulu celibacy to protect into Pacific region, the emphasis of the utilization of the development and for security objective. So I will feature some of the example. So Japan has also operationalized declaration to transport strategy. For example, like regular diplomacy and also OSA, right? Those actually part of the capacity building. I was given only 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes, right? You will present, okay. Right. So looking into this one, I take one example is the Japan strategic way in the Philippines. So this is the very the Philippines-Japan relations. So a very strategic way. I think this has also been mentioned about the scale of what the human capital that they employ in the Philippines as well. Right. So this is Japan engagement we began and also the key mechanism that we can look into this, how, for example, like, for example, looking into demonstrating about the network security model. Right? To be honest, Japan does not make military agreements with all of India in order to achieve this security, regional security objective. That's actually looking into how this the Philippines serve a very strategic anchor, right? You look into this throughout this region. I try to be quick. So the institutional challenge, transparency versus patronage. So that's actually looking into within different differentiations, right? So we look into how this beyond infrastructure, Japan's structural values. Japan has strategically developed a very complementary high values area. Those actually some of the examples. And the ecosystem, for example, like if you look into, of course, this is actually different from China involvement in demand. If you look into this market dominance, right, where Indonesia is highly, highly invested by China as well, Malaysia to some extent, the ecosystem effect, EV car in Sudan. So those actually being championed by China as well in the EV car. We do not know the future of EV car because we just started like 2 years ago. So we do not know the implication to our country. So because the trend of the countries like from Indonesia, Malaysia, and also from Brunei, we are moving towards this EV car, but we still do not know because we need to make sure that how it can affect, for example, the environmental or the issues. It's actually being raised by China, so that's by Japan. Sorry for that. So when you look into this one, this is the strategic differentiation. Japan is a very great in soft power. That's actually the advantage of Japan. So we look into this, there's actually example like green hydrogen frontier, where there was being put in Sarawak. And particularly, for example, like, in 2020, Hornbill project, Sumitomo Corporation in years, right? The development agency that, initiate the production of this clean hydrogen. Even with Brunei, Brunei Japan Hydrogen Partnership, due to this adaptation to the transitions. So this also, we look into the soft power approach. The soft power of material learning in Davao, for example, Japan also indirect influence rises in but here is Davao city master plan, also the tunnel there too. And there's actually so many significance of the blueprint of this, area now, right? So to some extent, how to actually, one of this content that I read in COVID also, like building human capital, Japan's people to people engagement. Was actually one of the contexts that being developed, narrated under this, Eaga roadmap, right? So what is the human capital strategy? For example, we have did mention about with the scalable giant scholarship program, and also how this infrastructure captures about Japan in the legacy that most into human capital development. Right? For example, educational exchanges and scholarship programs. Right? And too many to mention, just give you some example, like JICA Innovative Asia, a program for ASEAN students pursuing science and engineering, in Japan. And also with another universities like the benefiting from Japanese academic partnerships, for instance. Technical training and capacity building, that's actually one of the approach, and also healthcare cooperation. If you look into the Japan's sort of healthcare infrastructures, particularly in India and also Eastern Indonesia. And cultural diplomacy and soft power, that's actually one of the examples. We're not talking about K-pop, we're talking about, the cultural diplomacy soft power that, under Japan Foundation program that promoting Japanese language culture across the India. That was actually one of the important factors. So we're looking into this, long-term advantage, how this can actually create an institutional memory, where Japanese approaches in the future development organization. Those actually quite unique. If you look into, the aggressiveness of China towards within this region, right? So to conclude, sorry taking so many time. So from being a donor to a very strategic anchor. So this is being a right since the inception in 1994. We live in this, 2003, right? I say Japan for very example. Where at that time, Prime Minister policy prioritize Eaga. This has been mentioned, right? Where the statement is that narrowing the development gap. This has actually been realized. This has been envisioned. We need this human capital, so people to people connectivity, right? So what are the core strategic finding here? So the strategic difference is like Japan differentiates itself to a very dual focus, talking about the quality infrastructure and the green transitions, right? The proof is the Hornbill project, right? And also the proof that, that Brunei is working also with Japan in that context. Second is the institutional resilience. This is what we call it the software of statehood. The prioritizing of this, to empower regional government to negotiate more favorable agreements, a very transparent approach. And more or less, it's like we're talking about the security guarantee, navigating, how the reality that Japan navigating a very complex reality, right? Where China's consumer goods, for example, digital is, it's everywhere, right? So that's actually one of the, presentation, a work in progress paper, right? I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah Julay, for the insightful analysis on Japanese strategic on the international economic security and BIM Eaga. Thank you so much. Your presentation has provided us a macro-level understanding on how geopolitical dynamics and strategic competition shape Japan engagement in sub-region. Building upon the broader strategic perspective, our next presentation will take us a more grounded and a people-centered dimensions of corporations, focusing on human capital development as a key pillar of a sustainable regional growth. I am pleased to invite Dr. Ramli Dola from University Malaysia of Sabah to deliver his presentations. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairperson. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. My name is Ramli Dola from University Malaysia Sabah in Borneo in Sabah. Yeah. Okay. This is a caveat. Yeah. Actually, my Japanese studies, especially, I graduated from University of Malaya in Japanese studies, but it's been more than 30 years ago. I didn't touch on it. Only in the past 3 years, I start to refocus again on the Japanese studies, on the Japanese issues and Japanese contributions. And I published several articles on, but I try to relate because my background actually is on security studies. So I tried most of my my writing, my publication is focusing on how I try to relate Japanese contribution to the human security aspect of the of today life. Yeah, and because of that, my presentation today, Japan contribution to human capital development in Sabah, Malaysia, we will all. I will try to relate it, link it with human security, how Japan contribute actually to human security perspective in this new world. Yeah, and my case study on the actually it is bahasa Malaysia, Koperasi Pembangunan Desa, or I'll translate it to English, Rural Development Cooperative, yeah, and OISCA Youth Training Center in Tenom. Okay, next please. Oh, this one. Okay. This is a very challenging task doing this. I mean, this paper because when Dr. Ari asked me to give me the title, actually, I say, okay, I think this is a very good paper to give it. But actually, while doing the study on these particular issues, then I think it is very difficult to gather all information about it. I tried to contact OISCA, for example, but until today, many times actually, I tried to email them, but I didn't receive any feedback from them. And also I tried to also contact the state government, yeah, because it is a collaboration between the state government, Sabah state government, and also SK International. But again, on maybe because there was an election last month, and it seems that most of the officers they are reluctant to reveal anything about the issue. I don't know why, but I'll try my best to complete it. As Dr. Abdul mentioned just now, it is same like me. It is work in progress. Yeah. Okay, human capital development is essential for regional progress and social economic sustainability, especially in the states like Sabah and Malaysia in general. Yeah. And in this case, Japan has played a major role in supporting Malaysia rural development through capacity building initiative. But if you look at the previous study, literature review and whatever, yeah, we will found that most of the study that on this issue role the role of Japan government and its agencies, and it seems overshadow the roles of private sectors. And because of that, this paper is focusing on the cooperation between these private sectors and private public collaborations between OISCA and also rural development area KPD as mentioned just now. And one of the significant initiative is through OISCA collaboration with Rural Development Corporation in Temenon, Sabah. I guess many of us, it is never heard about OISCA International. OISCA International actually is a organization for industrial, spirituals, and cultural advancements. Yeah, it is a private sectors in Japan. It's like NGO in Japan. Yeah, founded in Japan in 1961. It focused more on agriculture training, environmental sustainability, and youth empowerment. And after 6 years of establishment, he has established more than 20 training centers, 31 chapters in all over the world, and many collaboration projects in 41 countries and areas. Yeah. Okay. History of OISCA. Its founding fathers, Yonosuke, yeah, gathered a series of international conferences in Japan in 1960s, and many countries involved, many representatives from many other countries such as Egypt, Pakistan, India, Myanmar, Philippines, Japan, US, India, and many other countries attending this first conference, yeah, and they all discuss about global issue that taking place during that time, yeah, the East West conflict and North-South gave nuclear issue, and they all argues that the spiritualities are losing their grounds, yeah, and therefore the conference itself is tried to they argue that there is a need to close the gap, yeah, the conflict to solve the problem, international problem during that time. And as a result, in May 1961, they all decided, especially the Yonosuke, decided to set up a permanent body to cope with global, regional, and local issue that human needs. They all Yonosuke believe that private organization could work effectively to complement government and also especially through private public collaborations. And as a result, in October 1961, this group gathered again in Japan to inaugurate OISCA, yeah? And During the meeting, more than 470 representatives from 18 countries were present. Yeah, and Yonosuke during this meeting was elected as a founding president of OSCA International. Okay, OSCA International Development Corporation, yeah, as I mentioned just now, is a private initiative, yeah, is a private area from all over the world, committed to support issue like education, youth empowerment, agriculture, and whatever, yeah. And sorry, and by mid-1960s, South Asia suffered several droughts and acute food shortage. And OISCA responded by dispatching experts for increased food production with motto food first. And as a result, we can see India, for example, attained self-sufficiency in major grants in 1973. And it is also that demonstrate the advantage of collaborative between the government, the farmers, the OISCA, and also Japanese experts. As I mentioned just now, it is also show that when we talk about collaboration, it is not only work within government to government. We also need to involve the non-government organizations such as OSCA. Then it is proof with what happened in India when they managed to solve the food shortage in that country. Yeah. And until today, around 74 Japanese OISCA experts and volunteers serve to achieve the NGO Green Revolutions. Yeah. Okay, in Malaysia, it started in 1967 when Yonosuke, during that time, often visit the Malaysia in Southeast Asia. Yeah, and finally they meet with the Malaysian politicians. Yeah, and through Moritomo, Malaysian government advisor on food and also food FAO expert receive a request for accepting Malaysia trainees from especially for Mara, yeah, during the time in September 1967, and finally they decide to establish what they call a training center in Japan to help especially rural area indigenous Malaysians, Malay, yeah, to get their training in Japan, yeah. And afterward, through discussion with Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries of Sabah states, the both sides agreed to establish what they call it East Malaysia Development Cooperation Plan, which was started in 1977, and and they also decide to open the training center in Tenam during that time. In 1984, it is also like in Malaysia case, yeah, when we talk about the contribution of OISCA in Malaysia development, KADA, yeah, Kelantan Agriculture Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture, and Kelantan State Government, they also work together to and finally they establish a training program in Malay Peninsula, yeah, under OISCA, yeah. In Malaysia, OISCA presence is organized through two critical hubs. One is in Peninsula and another one is OISCA Sabah chapters that manage vocational facilities, especially in Tenom that the paper will discuss. Yeah. Okay, the KPD OISCA Youth Training Center in Tenom. KPD OISCA International Corporation has been established since 1977, and when the KPD OISCA Youth Training Center was founded, and the aim during that time was to supply the agriculture machineries to provide skill instruction, especially from Japan, and also to sending a trainees, especially local Sabahan to get training, to be trained in Japan. Yeah. KPD OISCA is located near the agriculture park in Lagut, Seberang in Tenom. It is about 20 kilometers from Tenom and 155 kilometers from Kota Kinabalu. Actually, this area is a rural area. It's a very remote area in the southern part of Sabah. And this area, most of the activities in this agriculture, in this area is agriculture based, yeah. Fruits, palm oil, and everything, yeah. And in this cooperation, the aim of this cooperation is to train rural youths in sustainable agriculture, leadership, and community development, and also to emphasize both technical and moral, spiritual, and educations. Here is Tenam. Maybe many of you never come to this district. Yeah, it is a very in the southern part, very close to Kalimantan borders. Yeah, but in the southern part, very close to especially Brunei. Yeah, here is the location of Tenom itself. Yeah, here is the center, the KPD OISCA Youth Training Center. And the objectives of the center is to produce youths who are skills and commercially oriented in agriculture industry, to provide a skilled workforce in the field of agriculture, to develop youth who are hardworking, disciplined, committed, cooperative, and trustworthy, and to cultivate loyalty towards leaders and government and the nation, and to instill environmental awareness and love for nature. Yeah. The program structure in this center, especially for the youth, is the duration is 1 to 2 years residential training. Yeah, and the main component including agriculture techniques, paddy planting, vegetable, livestock, composting, and many other activities. Yeah. But in the same time, it is also include leadership and discipline development, environmental awareness and reforestation activities, and exchange program with OSCE Japan and alumni network activities. Yeah. Okay. This is one of the activities, livestock activities. Yeah. Okay. Course offered. There are several courses offered in this center for as a list there. You can see co-production operation, rice production operation, fruit productions, poultry farm operation, mushroom cultivation, especially for the lowlands. Yeah, and it depends. Yeah, the training duration is depends on the course itself. For example, 70 months for training. Yeah, and theory is 410 hours. You can see there, and practical 1,222 hours. Yeah, with 9 modules. And again here, the course offered in this it is not only based on the the skill that been attained from technology from skills from Japan, but it is also includes Malaysian skills certificates. Yeah, Malaysian certificate to enable those trainees who graduated from this center competitive then and can be employed in Malaysian markets. Yeah, after they graduated. Other skills programs including communication skill, problem solving skills, leadership skills, teamwork skills, multitasking skills, social values, and Japanese language course. Yeah, food handling, environmental conservation. These is all skills that being instilled among in these programs. Yeah. Food handling, for example. Yeah, for the trainees. As I mentioned just now, this program, I mean, conducted in KPD OSCA Youth Training Center in Tenom, were implemented using the National Occupational Skill Standard and curriculum under the National Dual Training System, which is recognized under Malaysian government education. Yeah. In this National Occupation Skill Standard, for example, curriculum consists of 20% theories and 80% practical training, providing apprentice with exposure to real farm activities. Yeah. Here is the numbers since 1977. Yeah, numbers of graduate. Yeah, it started with 93 male and 27 trainees. Yeah, and there is the statistic you can see, but unfortunately the statistic only cover until 2017. 2017. Yeah. Where is the role of Japanese in supporting this activity, youth empowerment? Yeah. It is funded partially by OISCA Japan. In 2019, for example, 71 students completed their studies in several programs, 7 lowland mushroom cultivation, 14 food productions and rice production operations supervision, 8 poultry farm operation, 28 trainees co-production operations. And in 2023, 15 students continue their study in Japan for a period of 1 to 3 years. Yeah. Technical assistant from Japan expert in agriculture and training management. I mean that while study in Japan, they are being trained to expert in this with Japanese skills. Yeah. The Japan government also provide machinery, technical materials, and capacity building workshop to these participants. I mean the trainees. Yeah. And also it strengthened people ties under Japan human security and soft power diplomacy. Yeah. The impact on human capitals, if you can see from individual levels, alumni can work together in agriculture, community project, and also entrepreneurships. Yeah. At the community level, it improve agriculture productivity, especially in Tenom and neighboring districts. As I mentioned just now, Tenom is a very rural, remote area. It took us 3 to 4 hours to reach that area. So most of the, job opportunity there are based on agriculture activities. Yeah. So it is one of the contributions of the, especially for this, Japan in this particular area, when they can help, especially those community in this area to be skilled in these particular issues. Yeah. Particular areas. A promotion of self-reliance and environmental stewardship. Yeah. And the state level, Sabah Agriculture Development Plan, for example, 2021 until 2020, 2030. Yeah. The Ministry of Agriculture of Sabah, it aims for 1,360 graduates to be produced from the center by the year to 2020. There is one of the contribution, meaning that apart, because when we understand Sabah itself is Malaysian system of government is federation system. Most of the assistance or most of the development project mostly coming from the federal government from Kuala Lumpur. But through OISCA International, they actually provide, they provide skill to people and help Malaysian in general to produce a skill workers, particular in these agriculture sectors. Yeah, that's also a reason why the Sabah government, Ministry of Agriculture, state government, they expected that this center will produce 1,360 graduates, who are skilled in this agriculture area to help Sabah develop the agriculture sectors. Yeah. The challenges and limitations, again, when we talk about a project like this, agriculture training and whatever, mostly one major constraint normally come from when we talk about funding. Yeah. So funding, again, funding sustainability and dependency on Japanese support is again one of the major constraint for these projects. Yeah. But again, I did not have any data to share with you because, as I mentioned just now, I tried to contact many times with the state government, but they said it is only partly supported by Japanese, but they cannot provide data during that time. Maybe, as I mentioned just now, because We just have an election. It's a very sensitive issue in Malaysia last month. So maybe after this, I try to get more uh, accurate data on this. I mean, Japan contribution to this project. Yeah. The limit of ASCA support. Yeah, it is also related to number one just now. It is about funding. Number of students are limited. There is only less than maybe 20 a year sending to Japan to get training for 1 to 3 years. Yeah. Difficulty attracting younger generation to agriculture-based training. There is one, again, the issues, not only, I think, not only in Malaysia, but in all over the world. Yeah. While we are having a problem of food security, food insecurity, but in the same time, many of the youngest generations, the youths especially, they are not interested to work in this particular area. They are like to work in the office, for example. Not There is a very challenging task, agriculture. Yeah. The need for modernized curriculum to integrate digital agri-tech skills, especially in the area in the era of AI as we live now. Yeah. And also language and cultural barrier between local trainees and Japanese trainers is also one of the challenges that most of the trainees facing. Yeah. During the training. Broader significant okay, as just now I mentioned about the contribution of Japan to this, I mean, particular area, especially to community level, individual level, and Malaysia in general. Yeah, when we talk about Japan contribution to the broader foreign policy, for example, you look at foreign policy, we can say that it reflects the Japan soft power and commitment. Okay, 2 minutes. In human security in Southeast Asia, especially in Bimp Eaga, and also strengthen bilateral relation through people-centered program. It is also contribute to Sabah Rural Development and Malaysia Vision 2030 goals. And my conclusion is that this project collaboration between OISCA International and Sabah State Government especially reflect the Japan soft power and commitment. It is a strengthened bilateral relation through people-centered development, and also it demonstrates the importance of private-public collaboration. As I mentioned in my introduction just now, it is almost overshadowed by the government-to-government collaborations. Yeah. Contribute to Sabah Rural Development and Malaysia Vision 2030 goals. With that, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for Dr. Amridola for shedding light Japan long-term contributions to human capital and development through the people-to-people cooperations in Sabah. The presentation highlight how development cooperations at the grassroots level complements broader regional strategic and reinforce the social foundations of a sub-regional integrations. Following the discussions of development and capacity building of the societal level, we know that move to another crucial dimensions and regional operations in the maritime security cooperations, which remains central to stability and connectivity in Southeast Asia. It's now my honor to invite Dr. Raffio Gajahan Pratama Isadana from Universitas Muhammadiyah Jakarta for the next presentation. Your floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Zulfan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And also, good morning, ohayo gozaimasu. Firstly, thank you for the committee for having me. I'm also very happy because this conference is quite special because I can reconnect with Japanese scholars. So I think I'm the most junior here, so I'm very happy to learn from all the sensei. There is Takagi sensei, Yuneno sensei, and I'm also able to connect with other Mac scholars. Turns out that Dr. Abdul was also a Mombusho scholar. Dr. Melvin is also a Mombusho scholar. And me, myself, I graduated from Kobe University. I spent 5 years in Kobe, both under Mac scholarship. I had a great time in Japan, so thank you to Shinozaki sensei and everyone in the embassy for organizing the selection in Indonesia. There is a slight change for my topic. I actually want to present my ongoing project, but turns out that 3 days ago, one of my final project from my PhD that I did with my supervisor Professor Kimura Kan from Kobe University, was just published. So I think that it's better to present something that has been published, so I can talk more about that. So my research during my PhD is to understand Japan's security policy expansion in Southeast Asia. So I was interested to understand why Japan is interested in Southeast Asia and what is the impact of the security cooperation in Southeast Asia. But today I will present my final part of my PhD, which is the impact, focusing on the Indonesia side. So for those interested to read about my paper, you can check on the Asian Journal of Political Science. It's published 3 days ago, and I'm also can share this the file with you if you're interested. Please let me know. I will share with you the free copy. So my research is about international security policy. So I am interested to understand why states' security policy change, why, what is their motivations to expand their security policy, and what are the consequences of those changes. And to represent the context, I'm interested to study Japan's expanding security and defense cooperation in Southeast Asia. Because previous research mostly discuss on why Japan do that and why is Japan interested to expand their security cooperation with Southeast Asian nations. My research seeks to add a new insight on the impact or benefit that Southeast Asian countries get from Japan's security initiative. So for context, especially maybe some of my students and the people who are not very familiar with Japan's security context. So Japan, since the end of the World War II, Japan has something called self-defense forces. So it's different from Indonesia or other Southeast Asian country that has an army. So that's why Japan security cooperation with Southeast Asian countries for probably decades has focused on the non-traditional security aspect, maybe on the humanitarian assistance or disaster reduction or maritime security. So mostly they focus on the non-traditional aspect. But after 2012, especially under Prime Minister Abe, so after the reinterpretation of the Article 9 in 2015, so Japan can now engage in traditional and military aspects sorts of type of cooperation. So one of the prime example in Southeast Asia is that Japan now have the defense technology transfer and development agreement. They have it with the Philippines, they have it with Indonesia, and I think they also have it with some other countries. Japan has 2+2 foreign and defense ministers meeting, joint military exercise, and the one specific with Southeast Asia is Vientiane Vision. So this is specific Japan's defense initiative to Southeast Asia. And the most recent one is the official security assistance. So if we know that Japan has official development assistance for development and economy, now they have expanded the function to also help the security capacity of the recipient country. So we have seen the expansion in Southeast Asia. So I want to understand what is the impact for Southeast Asia. And there is 11 countries in Southeast Asia. There is 11 countries in ASEAN, but I chose Indonesia because I argue that Indonesia is a typical case study. So I think Indonesia and the Philippines is among the country in Southeast Asia that Japan has a very deep security cooperation. In case of Indonesia, I think Indonesia almost have every type of security cooperation that Japan offer. We have the defense and technology equipment transfer. We have the 2+2 meeting. We have the security and military capacity building with the people from the Indonesian Army and Security Agency. We have joint military exercise. And we are expected to also receive the official security assistance from from Japan. So I think Indonesia is a typical case study for us to study. And from those contexts, from those background, I want to understand, I want to question, so how has Japan intensified security defense cooperation with Indonesia affected the ideational outcomes such as shared values and trust in Japan's security role in Southeast Asia? And to argue against this question, we argue that Japan's capacity building programs and joint military exercise contribute to value convergence and strengthen trust building conditions. So that means that security and defense cooperation can be driven by ideational aspect and create ideational impact. So for context, so the picture on the right side is I think the most recent 2+2 meeting. So we have the Indonesian foreign minister and Indonesian defense minister meeting with the Japan's foreign and defense minister. So this is the methods that I use to gather the data. So I talked to the key stakeholders in Indonesia side. So there are some pictures on the right side. So the top one is my interview with the heads of the Indonesian National Armed Forces International Cooperation Center. So if the university have International Affairs Office, so the military also have the International Affairs Office. And the bottom picture is my interview with the officer from the Indonesian Navy in charge with the naval strategy and diplomacy. Aside from talking from the people in the military, I also engage with the people in the Ministry of Defense and also the people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs dealing with Japan-Indonesia relationship. I also talked to the people in the Indonesian Parliament who is in charge for defense and foreign policy. And in academia, I also talked with people from ASEAN Study Center, Gajah Mada University, and also from my home university in IR department, which Professor Faris is one of the resource person. I used to interview Prof. Faris to get the insight from the academia. And from all of those data and analysis, I have two findings. So the first finding is that Japan-Indonesia maritime security cooperation it strengthened the condition for value convergence. Specifically, it strengthened the preconditions for rule of law norm implementation in operational level. So Japan have said that Indonesia is a like-minded country with Japan. That is what the both country leaders have said, but in the implementation, in the policy and the political level, Japan and Indonesia have diverging core foreign policy principle. So Indonesia foreign policy principle is free and active, or in Indonesia we say bebas aktif. So meaning that we are strategically independent and we are non-aligned. So basically engage with anyone that we like. And Japan is one of the proponent campaigner for rule-based international order, and clearly stated that U.S.-Japan alliance is one of the core backbone of the foreign policy, which different from in the Indonesian foreign policy principle. And despite the diverging foreign policy principle, in the operational level between the military, so this capacity building and joint exercise, they have improved the mutual learning of the international law and its more effective implementation, meaning that the people in the Indonesian Army and the JSDF have more effective implementation of international law. So the people in the military that I talked to, they felt like capacity building from Japan have helped them to understand international law better, and it helps them to have more improved decision making. So if there is some kind of law enforcement case in the sea, they have a more effective way to decide. So on the operational level, Japan and Indonesia have improved norm implementation in rule of law. And my second finding is the improved precondition for trust building. So because we engage a lot, we are familiar with each other, and we make a good friendship, we had a good time, so we sort of have a positive attitude for future cooperation. So we are really looking forward to have future cooperation with Japan in security aspect. So the statements from the key stakeholders, such as the Indonesian Army, the Ministry of Defense, the diplomats from foreign affairs and Indonesian Parliament, all of them agree that Japan's more active security role in the region is an opportunity for further cooperation instead of a threat. Maybe officials from South and North Korea and China, they may have a different say, but Indonesian perspective of Japan's security role is somehow positive, and they see that as an opportunity for cooperations. So these interactions have consolidated the preconditions for a trust building. And my conclusion of this research is that the expanded security and defense engagement with Indonesia have improved the preconditions for value convergence and trust building. And academically, that implies that security cooperation can be driven by ideas, norms, and shared values, and not only material power or strategic interests. But further research is necessary to actually measure the actual impact, the actual trust that have been improved on the Indonesian side. So this is a good opportunity for further research. And my final part is the future prospect for Japan and Southeast Asia security relations. So my research was done in 2023. So that was before what happened in the recent month. So I argue that the prospect is actually quite okay. So Japan's security initiative will more likely be more accepted by Southeast Asian nations despite the historical factors. And Japan's security presence legitimacy will improve under the conditions that Japan is consistent with its stance with international law and rule-based international order. Because one of the reasons why Southeast Asian country trust Japan is that Japan will use their power responsibly in compliance to international law. And I argue about this until recently, until the U.S. Unilateral action on Venezuela. So, Prime Minister Takaichi stated that, okay, so Japan is going to support the people of Venezuela democratization process, but not acknowledging that U.S. action on Venezuela is unilateral action. Because I have spent 5 years and years studying about Japan. I read all the documents, the white paper, the blue book, the statements, and everything. So Japan always against unilateral actions unilateral actions by certain power trying to change the status quo. You can look on all the documents. Maybe they're referring about China, but when the United States is doing the same thing, so they don't refer to that. So I am personally, I studied about Japan. I studied in Japan for 5 years. I had a good time, but I feel quite disappointed with these statements. So I hope that Japan can be consistent with the international law, and then they can have a good friendship with all people in Southeast Asia. So I think that's it from me. I give it back to the moderator.
Thank you to all our distinguished speakers for their insightful and thought-provoking presentations. Taken together, this paper have provided us for the comprehensive view on Japan's engagement in Bimp Eaga, from strategic and political economic considerations to human capital development until with the maritime security cooperations with those governments. Now we will open floor for the question and answer sessions. I kindly invite participants to raise their hand and briefly introduce themselves by stating their name before posing the questions. Okay. Any question? 1, 2, and 3. So we already have 3 questions. All right.
Okay, thank you for the time. Uh, First, let me introduce myself. My name is Rakai Gibran Algani, and I want to pointing out at the last presentation from Mr. Rafi Yoga related to security, because I was so interested related to security, but I will be a little bit pointing at the Japanese commitment related to Taiwan. It's not the direct, but it show that how much Japan can potentially give support towards its allies related to cooperation in in security, maritime security. Now the question is, maybe it's not directly to Mr. Rafioga. Maybe everyone who maybe possibly can answer related, because it's related to what's possible ceiling of Japanese support towards Southeast Asian countries related to the security, maritime security. Because I'm personally think that direct military cooperation between Indonesia and South Korea related to maybe KF-21 and South Korean submarine, it's actually indirectly saying that South Korea supporting Indonesia for its maritime security. But how about Japan? What's possible ceiling of Japanese support towards Indonesia? Thank you.
So thank you, Rakai, for the questions. So we like to collect all the questions, and then finally, at the end of before the sessions ends, so all the different speakers will answer for all the questions. So second question from, yeah, you. Okay. Then last to Mr.
My name is Muhammad Usman Khan, international student from Pakistan. So my question is from Professor, that you said that Japan supported the US action against Maduro, but Indonesia, they didn't condemn it either. So isn't that the Indonesia and Japan are in same boat in this condition? Good question.
All right. So for the last question from Mr. Izuki.
Yeah, thank you very much for wonderful presentation. I learned a lot. And I have one question each. For Abdul, yeah, that's very interesting to know about some diversification strategy of Brunei. And recently I studied hydrogen, and many people talk about hydrogen. I think that one of the bottlenecks actually here is the market. And to develop the hydrogen market, you need to invest in infrastructures. And some say like Japan should buy more from hydrogen, but Japan should invest a lot to develop hydrogen infrastructure. And actually, developed economy have already existing infrastructure for energy, consumption. So in that sense, the kind of the leap forward type development can be found in, say, energy transition. So my question is that, how do you see the prospect of the hydrogen market in Southeast Asia, including, of course, Brunei? That's my question to you. And question to Ramir is that, yeah, I really like the idea to study civil societies, but I don't know why people rarely look at Oiska so much outside of Japan, actually. And my question is not about Oiska, but my question about, are there any, existing collaboration between Sabah and rural government in Japan? Like, Japan is such a big, Japan is a name of the country, right? And Sabah is a part of Malaysia. So I'm so curious about existing cooperation, say like sister food things, or because in terms of agricultural development, maybe we better to shift our focus from national to rural. That's my questions. And Rafa Yoga, my question is about idea of Indo-Pacific, because Japan committed the idea of the free and open Indo-Pacific, as you know very well. But I always have a mixed feeling to promote Indo-Pacific strategy, because many people say in ASEAN say like always ASEAN, you talk about Indo-Pacific. So how do you see the idea that Japan is promoting the Indo-Pacific in their strategic making? And what's the assessment of ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific from ASEAN version? This is my question to you. Thank you.
All right. So while we're giving time for break from Mr. Rafi, so I would like to invite first from Mr. Abdul Hajulai to answer the questions from Mr. Isuke.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think if you look into this hydrogen, right, I think looking into this those feasibility studies between, Brunei and Japan. We only started hydrogen, I think it was during COVID, right? It was during COVID, we started the hydrogen, and it was under the AHEAD company of Japan, right? So the future of Brunei is like try to downstreams of this, oil and gas, because after all, Brunei is still related to oil and gas industries, right? But by looking at this one, hydrogen is part of this, I see the context of blue economy, right? Green economy. So I think there's a future of this. Even like Japan is working with Sarawak, these hydrogens, right? And also Brunei is also working with this, with Japan under this hydrogen. I mean, the first exportation of hydrogen was started in 2020 December, right? After I think it was during COVID. So there's actually, possibilities of this hydrogen because of this is the current market, right? And Japan is the first countries, right, of championing of this hydrogen gas. And Brunei is willingly to collaborate with Japan, right? On the other hand, if you look into that context also, Brunei also working on other industries with Japan, for example, like methanol plant, right? And also other industries. And quite interestingly, like Brunei-Japan relations started so-called like oil diplomacy in 1972 until now. So those are actually quite unique between Brunei and Japan, right? It's not just about oil and gas, it's about how to actually execute of this, like green energy in the future. So those are actually quite interesting with Brunei and Japan. I think that's all that I can, thank you very much. Right.
Okay, now we move into Mr. Uh, Dr. Romli Dola for answering questions from Mr. Yusuke.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yusuke. As far as I'm concerned, there is no any activity cooperation I mean, at the lower level, at city to city, for example. Yeah. Because most of the research now focusing on the Japan government and its agencies such as JICA and also JOCB and also universities. Yeah. But it is also a good start if we can start a new collaboration between, I mean, rural area, what we can learn from, especially from agriculture in Japan. Thank you very much.
Now to Mr. Rafioga to giving a response from 3 questions from our panel discussion today.
Okay, so I received the most questions. It feels like Zemi during my PhD. Okay, I will answer the most obvious question first from Usman. So, is Indonesia and Japan having the same view on the US actions on Venezuela? Surprisingly and regrettably, yes. So we both of us have shared value on the importance of international law, but when it comes to politics, things change. So personally, I regret to say that yes, they are on the same page on this. And the second question is from Rakai. So is your question about Taiwan or about Indonesia?
It's actually about Japan, not both of them, but the ceiling of
All
the
right,
possible
okay.
support from Japan.
All right. So okay, so I can give a bit of a context here. So from my point of view, I'm not the most Japanese person to answer this question, but Japan is trying to improve their legitimacy to reintegrate to the security community, right? So after the World War II, Japan is trying to be more active and trying to gain more trust so they can have, active security role. Japan have so many technologies. They have the technologies, they have the troops, they have the material aspect, but their ceiling or limitation is on the two sides. From the domestic side is usually the public support. So it's different from Indonesia. The people in Indonesia, we saw the military as someone very capable, to the extent that they used to be inside the government during Suharto era, and today we see a lot of the people from the military in the civilian position. So culturally, we see the military people as someone who can solve our problems. In Japan, that's the other way around. So people are somehow very traumatized by the military. So so that's why whenever they try to be more active, the public is going to say something about that. And the good thing about Japan's politics, for me, from outsider perspective, is that Japan has a very strong electoral accountability. So the politicians are so afraid of the voters. So whenever there is the lower popularity or the lower approval rate, the prime minister are going to call for the early election to save the party. So the first one is the domestic support is the ceiling, and the second ceiling is from the international acceptance, because two Koreas are going to say something, the Chinese are going to say something about that. So Japan is trying to be very very careful on that. So to mitigate those situations, usually Japan focus on the non-traditional security aspect, like giving the patrol boat or providing trainings or give a radar. So something that doesn't look like a weapon, so to other countries. So the ceiling is on the domestic support and the international legitimacy. That's the two things. If Japan can solve the two things, they can be a very active player and quote unquote assist other country with more things. And the final question is from Takagi Sensei. So it's about the Southeast Asian response and the Indo-Pacific. Well, I have a quite unique observation on this, because Japan, in many documents, they say that they support ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific. We support AOIP. But when I look into the ASEAN documents, they're trying to, I was trying to find a statement where ASEAN or some Southeast Asian country, such as Indonesia, say that they support and welcome FOIP from Japan. I couldn't find that. So that means, in my argument, is that Southeast Asian country is trying to be relevant without losing their strategic independence. So they understand that the strategic landscape is expanding from Asia Pacific to Indo-Pacific. But again, the country who keep proposing the Indo-Pacific idea is Japan's, United States, and their like-minded countries. So Southeast Asia introduced the same thing, ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. So we recognize that the landscape is changing. We are trying to be relevant, but we cannot, we cannot quote unquote get closer to one flock. So we created our own version of Indo-Pacific. So in the ASEAN internally, the issue is also on the operational aspect. So okay, we have the concept of AOIP, but we cannot see the tangible operational implementation of that concept, because firstly, not not all Southeast Asian country is on the same side, on the political side. Some of them are closer to the United States. Some of them are closer to China. So it's very hard to find the consensus on the implementation of AOIP. So I think that's my three answers to that.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude these sessions, I would like to sincerely apologize to our participants joining us via Zoom who may not have had the opportunity to ask their questions because our time limitations. We truly appreciate your enthusiasm and active participations, and we regret that not all questions could be accommodated in these sessions. Thank you very much for your understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, now we approach the end of the panel sessions. I would like to sincerely thank you for our distinguished speaker for their insightful presentations and thoughtful response during discussions. Today panel has enriched our understanding about of BIM Eaga Japan cooperations by highlighting strategic development and governance perspective, which are highly relevant to the future of sub-regional cooperations in Southeast Asia. Uh, Thank you for our distinguished speakers, Dr. Abdul Hejulai from University of Brunei Darussalam, to Dr. Ramli Dolah from University of Sabah, Malaysia, to Dr. Rafi Gajahan Pratama Irsadana from University of Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. I would like also to express my appreciation to all participants for their active engagements and valuable questions. On behalf of the organization committee, thank you so much for your participations. This concludes panel session 1. I wish you a productive continuations of this conference. Thank you. I'll give back to uh, moderator, to the MC. So before we end the sessions, please come to front, Mr. Melvin, Dr. Melvin, to give a certificate for our distinguished speakers. Okay. Starting by our first speaker to second speaker to the third speakers.
Let me read the citation. A certificate of acknowledgement to our speakers for the panel session one. For their papers, you know their titles already. And the certificate is given on the 24th of January 2025, signed by Dr. Adi Vera Sinjaya. I don't have my eyeglasses, sorry. So congratulations and thank you very much for your participation. Then we have Dr. Juga Jehan. And then Dr. Ramli Dula.
Thank you to the moderator and speakers for an insightful first session. We will now take a lunch break and reconvene at 12:30. For participants, lunch is available outside and we're hoping and we're expecting that you back here by 12:30. And for our speakers, we'll be providing lunch in a box. Thank you very much.